Okay, let's start with a fun, terrifying thought experiment. A scenario that feels like something out of a movie, but is becoming an unnervingly plausible reality for millions. You're in your home, a place you consider your fortress. A historic blizzard, the kind they name and talk about for generations, hits your region with unprecedented force. The power grid, strained and fragile, fails on day one. The silence is the first shock. The cold is the second. The heat is gone by day two. By day three, the laws of thermodynamics have taken over. Your fortress is now a freezer. The indoor temperature matches the outdoor temperature. A brutal, life-threatening -20 degrees Fahrenheit. Your high-tech, modern sleeping bag, rated for extreme cold, is in the trunk of your car, which is now just a white mound under 4 feet of snow. Your phone, your lifeline to the world, is a dead piece of glass. Your power banks are drained. Your teeth are chattering an involuntary Morse code for "we're in serious trouble." What do you do? Where do you even begin when modern solutions have utterly failed? You might not believe it, but the absolute best playbook for this scenario wasn't written by special forces or modern survival gurus. It was written over a century ago by desperate, frozen, and incredibly clever gold seekers in the Klondike gold rush of the 1890s. These men and women weren't adventurers by choice. They were driven by desperation and dreams of fortune. They faced conditions that would make a modern prepper weep, with temperatures plunging to 50, 60, even 70 below zero. They invented survival tricks so brutal and effective they were often kept secret, passed along like contraband only to those deemed worthy. Today, we're unearthing the Klondike's darkest, most ingenious winter secrets. These aren't just historical curiosities. They are life-saving principles. First, let's bury the biggest myth of modern survival: that it's all about gear. In the Klondike, gear failed constantly. Metal axe heads didn't just get dull, they shattered like glass. Leather boots didn't just get stiff, they cracked and fell apart. What kept men alive was a profound, practical understanding of basic physics: conduction, convection, radiation, and a ruthless willingness to exploit them with whatever was at hand. The most important thing they carried wasn't in their pack, it was in their head. It was a specific, powerful mindset. It was the mindset of next. Not if, but when. The next problem hits, what is the next logical, immediate move? When the fire dies, what's next? When the food freezes solid, what's next? It was perpetual, shivering, relentless problem solving. There was no time for panic or despair. All right, a quick riddle to get your brain working before we simulate hypothermia. To start thinking like a sourdough. I am a hole that makes you warm. I am a ditch that becomes a bed. I am dug in despair but filled with hope. I am your grave, turned into your cradle. What am I? Hold that thought. The answer is our first and perhaps most critical secret. Secret number 1, the firebed or fire hole. This is a direct, almost heretical violation of every modern leave no trace camping guideline, which is precisely why it was a secret then and is largely forgotten now. It's a technique born of pure necessity. When a prospector was caught out on the trail, far from any cabin, without shelter, and needed to survive a killing cold through the long Arctic night, he would do this. First, find a spot protected from the wind, behind a rock outcropping, in a thicket of trees, anywhere to escape the wind chill that steals warmth so viciously. Then, using his shovel or even just a pan, he'd dig a trench in the snow or frozen earth, the length and width of his body about a foot deep. At one end of this shallow grave, he'd dig a deeper hole, the fire pit, maybe another foot down. This was crucial for containing the heart of the operation. In that hole, he'd build a small but intensely hot fire of the driest wood he could find. The goal wasn't a large roaring bonfire, but a concentrated core of heat. He'd let it burn down completely to a thick bed of glowing coals. Then, using a long stick, he'd carefully, methodically, spread those hot coals across the entire floor of the trench, creating an even layer of intense heat. This is the most dangerous and vital step. He'd immediately cover the coals with a few inches of dirt, sand, or gravel, This layer was the heat regulator, preventing him from being burned and allowing the heat to release slowly. On top of that warm earth, he'd lay down his insulation layer, a thick mattress of evergreen boughs, dry moss, or if he was lucky, his canvas pack or a spare blanket. This was the barrier between his body and the hot ground. What he created was a primitive but incredibly effective radiant heating pad, a geothermal mattress that would stay warm for most of the night. He would then lie down on top of this insulated warm trench, pull his blankets over him, and let the earth itself keep him alive. The frozen ground is a heat sink. It will suck the life out of you through conduction faster than almost anything else. This technique reversed that process. The earth beneath him would be warm to the touch, actively fighting the conductive heat loss that kills you from below. It was a desperate, dangerous trick. A miscalculation could mean burning your only gear or yourself, but it was consistently the difference between waking up to a frozen sunrise and not waking up at all. Secret number 2, the Deadman's candle lantern. In the endless oppressive darkness of a Yukon winter, where the sun might not clear the horizon for weeks, candles were life. They provided light to work by, to cook by, and to stave off the psychological gloom. But a single, naked candle flame gives off pathetic light and almost negligible heat. It's a symbol of warmth more than a source of it. The Klondike hack was to turn this flicker of hope into a miniature space heater, a radiant furnace. They'd take a simple tin can, a ubiquitous piece of trash from their beans or bully beef. Using the tip of a knife, they'd punch a few holes near the top rim for ventilation, to ensure the flame didn't suffocate itself. Then, they'd place a lit candle inside it and set the entire apparatus on a non-flammable surface like a rock or a stump. The thin metal of the can would quickly heat up, absorbing the energy that would otherwise dissipate. It would then begin radiating that stored warmth in a small but significant radius. But the real genius move, the master stroke, was to place a larger pot, or a second, larger can, over the top of the first one, propped up slightly with small stones to allow airflow from below. This created a mini convection engine. Hot air from the candle would be trapped between the two cans, superheating the outer can and creating a powerful upward current of warm air. The outer metal surface would get dangerously hot, glowing a dull red in the dark, radiating significant heat for its tiny size. A cluster of 3 of these simple devices arranged around you in a small snow cave tent, or a single freezing room in a house could lift the ambient temperature by a life-saving 20 or 30 degrees. It wasn't comfort. It was never about comfort. It was about survivability. It was turning a penny candle and a piece of trash into a personal thermal power plant. Pure physics. Riddle answer time. If you guessed the firebed or firehole, you're absolutely right. You're thinking like a person who understands that the cold ground is the enemy, and you're trying not to lose your toes to frostbite. Secret number 3 was purely psychological, but no less critical for survival. The watch in a one-man camp. In the utter solitude, silence, and crushing darkness of the Arctic winter, madness was a real and present enemy. The isolation could break a person's spirit long before the cold broke their body. The cold and dark could lure you into a fatal apathy, a state known as the dwindles, where the will to live simply evaporates. So, savvy prospectors would institute a formal watch schedule, even when they were completely alone. They became their own commanding officer. They'd divide the endless night into manageable 2-hour stretches. For one watch, their job was to be active. To tend the fire, to pace back and forth, to recite poetry, to whittle a stick, to mend gear, to do something focused and purposeful. Then, at the designated time, they would formally relieve themselves for the next watch, which was dedicated to rest. Not deep sleep, but a managed period of stillness. This artificial structure, this self-imposed discipline, fought the overwhelming biological urge to just sit down, stop moving, curl into a ball, and give in to the terminal sleep of hypothermia. It created purpose in a vast, indifferent void. It broke an insurmountable period of darkness into a series of small, achievable victories. It was a mental hack to outlast the profound despair that cold inevitably breeds. It kept the mind sharp and the will to live intact. Now, translate this to a modern grid-down winter scenario. This psychological trick is everything. You must give yourself and your family shifts, a security watch to check the perimeter, a fire-tending watch for your wood stove or candle heaters, an exercise watch to generate crucial body heat, a morale watch to read a book or play a card game. This structure stops you from becoming a passive victim of the environment and keeps you an active agent in your own survival. These 3 secrets are not random tips. They work because they form a complete system that addresses the core truths of death by cold. You lose heat through conduction, contact with the ground, radiation, your body heat escaping into the air, and you lose the will to live through mental surrender. The firebed fights conduction, the candle lantern fights radiation loss, and the personal watch fights mental surrender. This is the Klondike Trinity: body, heat, and mind. So, this winter, as you look at your preparations, go beyond the fancy equipment. Do you have just gear, or do you have the knowledge to make that gear, or even trash, work for you? Do you have a plan for your mind as well as your body? Ask yourself honestly, could you right now, with a simple shovel, a single candle, and a tin can, win a night against -20? If you understand these secrets, if you internalize the physics and the psychology, the answer isn't just yes. It's a story you'd tell for the rest of your life, with a quiet, knowing smirk, just like a grizzled prospector who outwitted the Yukon itself and lived to find his gold.